Today, we are exploring the story of David, an adventurous hiker who unexpectedly becomes a savior when he encounters a distressed grizzly bear in the wilderness. Realizing the young cub is stranded on a cliff, he must channel his inner willpower to rescue the cub and keep them both safe as he descends. Please consider liking this video. Our goal is 5,000 likes for this video, and also consider subscribing for more videos like this in the future. Welcome to Wonderbot Animals. During David's challenging hike on a seemingly perfect day, he found himself on a new trail, drawn to the adventures of the unknown. The sun beat down, the air was stagnant and ideal for building up a good sweat. Each step intensified his muscle burn, promising a rewarding view at the end. Navigating rough terrain, a sense of being watched suddenly haunted David. Something lurked nearby, unsettling him. Whipping around every few minutes, he found only an empty path. Trusting his instincts, he momentarily let his guard down. In an instant, the empty path transformed into a face-off with a fierce predator, a massive grizzly bear. Adrenaline surged through David's body, activating the fight or flight trigger latent in all of us. As an ex-Special Forces, he had faced fear and adrenaline before, but this was different. A distressed, blood-smeared grizzly stood before him, a formidable and unpredictable grown predator. With his heart pounding, David controlled his breathing, awaiting the bear's move. The standoff intensified as both predator and man were locked in a tense stare, each waiting for the other to make the first move. David's senses heightened as he braced for a bear attack. What transpired, however, left him perplexed. The grizzly rose on her hind legs, towering menacingly, only to drop down and shake her head repeatedly. Next, the bear began hesitantly stepping toward David. The ex-Marine projected confidence and masked his fear, yet the bear's unusual behavior stirred concern. Something deeper seemed at play. Typically, bear confrontations signaled aggression or protective instincts, but this encounter defied expectations. Then, things clicked in David's mind. He had spotted bear tracks on the trail, one large and one smaller, a mother and cub. Could this massive grizzly be the mother? The absence of the cub prompted him to scrutinize the surroundings, yet no sign appeared. His perception of the bear shifted. Now she seemed more like a distressed mother searching for her missing cub. Gently extending his hand, David spoke soothingly to the bear. "It's okay, Mama. Where's your cub? Is everything okay? Let me help you." The bear showed a subtle response, slowing her movements before turning around, displaying confusion. As David considered his options of what to do next, the bear unexpectedly began to walk away. Driven by a compelling sense to follow, he trailed the giant grizzly at a safe distance, maintaining vigilance and readiness in case the situation took a different turn. The bear, instead of aggression, displayed determination, stopping and waiting from time to time to ensure David continued to follow. Their pace quickened, navigating the rocky mountainside. Then, the bear stopped at the cliff's edge, where it began moaning and wailing. David moved with agility, hoping that the cub had not fallen off the edge. Confronted with the potential of a grieving mother bear, he braced for a challenging situation. Moving alongside her to the right, David carefully advanced towards the edge. Gazing down the steep ravine, he tried to get a glimpse of the cub. Turning back to the mother bear for reference, his eyes caught a delicate, small platform protruding from the cliff face. Resting on the fragile platform was a small grizzly cub, its condition dire. Unmoving and clearly dehydrated, its matted fur and bloody paws mirrored its distressed mother. The cub emitted small groans, met with worried responses from its grieving mother. David, moved by compassion, felt compelled to act. Assessing the situation swiftly, David realized that the baby bear had likely fallen off the cliff, miraculously landing on the platform. Although spared from a fatal fall, it now found itself trapped. The mother bear was unable to descend without getting stuck, and the cub was unable to climb back up. David realized that the bear had brought him here to help her baby. And, luckily for her, David appeared to be the right person for the job. Unfazed by such challenges, David's mind raced upon seeing the cub, driven by his training in handling difficult and perilous situations. Placing his bag on a sturdy rock, David delved into his supplies, contemplating a solution. With the right hooks, he could anchor a line and descend to the bear cub. The lingering challenge, however, was the return ascent. Holding the bear while climbing back up the cliff presented a clear impracticality. Now, while the cub was quite small, David estimated that it still weighed around 40 pounds. It was not an easy thing to achieve. But a promising idea struck David. Returning to the edge, he assessed the cub, and a plan began to form. If the cub was cooperative, he could then place it in his backpack on his back for the climb back up. It was the only solution he could think of. Clearing his backpack and stashing everything under a tree, David secured the hook and climbing line. Buckling up, he took a deep breath and began the backward descent over the cliff's edge. Hoping for stable weather conditions, he felt the wind picking up. The descent proved to be farther down the cliff than he initially calculated, requiring several jumps to reach the platform. Fortunately, the bear cub, who was too physically tired to even react in fear, allowed David a soft landing a few feet away. Its condition was worse than expected, likely deprived of water for days. David extended his hand to familiarize the cub with his scent. The bear's eyes closely followed his every move, seemingly relieved that David was there to help. Interpreting the calm body language of the bear as a signal to proceed, David approached the cub and removed his empty backpack. In a surreal moment, he found himself preparing to place a wild bear cub into his hiking bag. With the bag laid open, he carefully lifted the cub, which, in its final burst of energy, startled in David's arms. The sudden movement caused David to jump, but miraculously he regained balance, avoiding a perilous fall. The bear cub was now barely resisting David's efforts, but instead began vocalizing its distress, calling out urgently to its mother. David carefully placed the bear cub inside, feet first, gently securing the drawstring opening around the bear's neck, hoping that it would effectively keep her secure and motionless during the ascent. The bear cub continued to yell out to its mother, now with a hint of uncertainty in its cries. David crouched low, effortlessly lifting the bag with the bear onto his back. Surprisingly lighter than expected, he secured the bag and then looked for stable footing to help the ascent. Suddenly, disaster struck. The rock beneath his feet gave way, and the fragile platform crumbled down the cliff face. Thankfully, David remained tethered to the climbing line, the line that now held 2 lives dangling. They began falling and swinging against the rock face. As David held on for dear life, he could not avoid banging his head and body against the cliff, but he managed to slow down the descent and stop swinging wildly. He realized that blood now streamed down his face from the impacts. As he collected his thoughts, David sought the best route to ascend, using the frantic gaze of the mother bear above as a guide for the anchor of the rope. Mindful not to alter his angle too much to prevent the hook from loosening, he pushed his feet against the rock, climbing incrementally. Every single step and pull-up caused David's fingers to scream and his body to ache. Yet, the promise of reuniting the pair of bears fueled his determination. Despite the pain and suffering, he persevered, inching his way upward slowly but surely. Eventually, he made his way to the top, where he took a moment to gather himself, feeling his muscles burn and his breath run hot. The mother bear approached cautiously, sniffing aggressively at her cub. Aware that they all needed to move away from the edge, David carefully stood back up, removing the bag from his back. Walking a safe distance away from the precipice, he set the bag down on the ground. David gently opened the bag, allowing the little cub to emerge. Preferring to avoid any direct interaction with the mother, he laid the bag down, opened the drawstring, and took a few sizable steps back. Heartbreaking moans emanated from the mother bear as she urged her lethargic cub to come out. Despite the cub's weakened state, it slowly emerged from the bag. The mother bear, while visibly tired, wrapped her cub in her arms and immediately began grooming it. This was an unmistakable display of maternal consolation. Exhausted from the ordeal, David sat down, reflecting on the thrill of the experience. It had been years since he had encountered something so exhilarating, a fitting challenge for a day that he had set out seeking just that. Gradually standing back up, as to avoid startling the pair, David began repacking the contents of his backpack. During this process, a realization hit him. The bear cub was likely dehydrated and hungry. Recognizing the immediate need, he decided to step in. Disregarding the notion of not interfering with the circle of life, he retrieved a water bottle and approached the bears cautiously. Near them, he found a rocky hollow into which he poured water, ensuring that the two bears could keep track of him while he did this. He even unwrapped a few snack bars and set them down for the two as well. As David watched the bears happily drinking water and munching on snacks, he couldn't help but feel a mix of exhaustion and awe. The mother bear's grateful gaze spoke volumes, and the once stranded cub now contentedly nestled beside her. With a final look towards the two bears, David shouldered his backpack, leaving the cliffside behind. Every step echoed the indelible imprint of an extraordinary encounter, a reminder of the unexpected connections that can be forged